Ahoy, everyone. This is David Perry with my continuing series of interviews with friends, colleagues, people around the world talking about how we get from what I call the great pause of COVID into the great return. And anyone who has given just a passing glance to my Facebook feed knows that I love ships. Well, I'm here with two members of ship royalty. Please welcome into the Zoom room Susan Gibbs, Executive Director of the SS United States Conservancy, and Mark Perry, writer, artist, director, producer, and my co-moderator for the West Coast chapter of the SS United States Conservancy. Welcome to you both.
Permission to come aboard, Captain?
Aye, aye. Susan, let's start with you. For some people, they are not aware of your maritime legacy. And what's interesting to me, and I'd like you to tell the story, is for a long time, even you weren't really aware of your maritime legacy. How did you come to be the protectress of America's flagship?
Yes, that is true. So my grandfather, William Francis Gibbs, designed the SS United States, and it was a lifelong obsession. But as you said, the first time I saw the ship with my own two eyes was in her current dotage in Philadelphia. So my first glimpse of her was in 2001, and I had, lost touch. And it really wasn't until my father died back in 1995, and I discovered all of these treasures and papers and photos of the ship and articles about my grandfather and speeches and letters that I developed a curiosity that is in fact grown into its own obsession.
Well, an obsession and a good cause. I mean, Mark, no relation to me except we're ship brethren. As you well know, William Francis Gibbs was inarguably the greatest naval architect produced by the United States. He even was Time's Man of the Year. What brought you to your love and assistance in protecting the SS United States, and what started your love of ships?
My love of ships started when I was growing up in the very landlocked suburbs of Atlanta, where one Saturday night on NBC Saturday Night at the Movies, they showed a film called The Last Voyage, which was filmed entirely aboard the former SS Ile-de-France on its way to the scrappers. And as a third grader, I sat there watching this on our little black and white TV, and I was enamored of this ship. I thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And so I started reading about ships, developed this passion for ships because of that film. And then I saw a notice that there was going to be a meeting aboard the Queen Mary down here in Long Beach, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the ship's maiden voyage back in 2002. And so I went down there, and this woman got up. She was introduced as the granddaughter of the ship's designer, and she started reading excerpts from her grandmother's journal about the maiden voyage, and it was so moving and inspiring and eloquent. And that's when I decided I would throw my hat into the ring and get involved in the effort to save the ship. And I'm proud to say I'm a founding board member alongside Susan, and we are still in this.
Right. I think we all remember the nativity of our interest in ships. For me, growing up in Richmond, Virginia, raised on a book, Oliver Hazard Perry, Boy of the Sea, I knew I was in for a life. My father, who was a teller of tall tales, said we were directly descended. We've since found out that isn't true, but it didn't spoil the story, and here I am. And I remember when I was 10 years old with my father on our boat in Newport News, Virginia, pulling up between two gorgeous ships, one military, the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy, and on her starboard side, the SS United States. And somewhere in a drawer I've been searching for years is a picture of me touching the hull of the SS United States. And that was it for me. Susan, the SS United States is called America's flagship, the greatest ocean liner ever built by the United States, still the holder for the fastest crossing of the Atlantic. Why is it important that we preserve this ship, and where are we in those efforts?
How much time do we have? No, it's important for so many reasons. Part, as you've said, the ship itself represents the high water mark of really American maritime history. She is is and was so technologically innovative and is just an extraordinary masterpiece of naval architecture, marine engineering. So just in addition, she has such symbolic significance as a, back then, ocean liners, excuse me, there's a bit of internet instability. Back in that day, ocean liners were, the equivalent of space shuttles and, these triumphal American symbols. And her maiden voyage was in 1952 after World War II, when this country was presiding over the reconstruction of Europe. And so she just embodied this strength and grandeur and technological innovation and unity. And so I think it's fair to say that we need those qualities. We need what she represents and what she can teach us now today in our kind of riven polity more than ever. So she has just tremendous symbolic importance, tremendous historical significance, and we are determined to save her.
So Mark, a few months ago, as of course people on this Zoom, and I'm sure many who will watch it later know, you and I played co-host for the first virtual gala for the SS United States. You were able to bring in some real star talent. I mean, Clea Blackhurst, Dolly Parton, gasp and swoon, incredible footage. What do you think is it about the SS United States specifically and that era that makes it so iconic? I mean, I talk to people here in Palm Springs where mid-century modernism, of course, is a religion almost. And I keep telling them that the SS United States is the prime example of mid-century modern. What is it about that period that still speaks to us, both artistically and, dare I say it, spiritually?
For me, I think the ship is so symbolic of a time period when the country could actually work toward a common goal. All 48 states at the time the ship was built contributed materials or in some way to the construction of the ship. And it was a symbol of national unity and a symbol that I think we need now more than ever. And I believe that she can be that symbol again when she is restored and in her new life. And then, of course, for me, it's just the gorgeous aesthetics of the whole thing. The exteriors, I love the interiors of the ship. And but to me, it's mostly that she is can be a unifying symbol. It's a bipartisan effort. There's no politics involved in this. It's just we're working together toward a common goal.
So now, Susan, in our last few minutes, talk to us about what stage the effort is and to preserve her. Many people don't know that she is still around. She's in Philadelphia. She's still beautiful. She was constructed so well by Newport News Shipbuilding and designed by your grandfather that my understanding is there's been very little damage or degradation to the hull. She is still seaworthy. But what are the plans for her restoration, revival, the renaissance of the SS United States, and what can people do to help?
No, and that's exactly right. She is still structurally sound. She was so overbuilt to begin with that she is in tremendous shape. She's been in Philadelphia since 1996. We invite everyone to take a peek at her on the internet. Go to the Conservancy's website at www.ssusc.org, and there's a lot of eye candy of this beautiful ship that Mark has spoken of so eloquently. But we're encouraged because in December of 2018, the SS United States Conservancy, a national nonprofit organization with members and supporters in every state and some 40 countries, entered into an option agreement with a prominent commercial real estate development firm based in New York called RXR Realty. And since then, RXR Realty has been working on feasibility studies with the goal of partnering, of course, with the Conservancy on restoring the ship as an extraordinary fixed, so stationary mixed use development in one of our great major port cities, which would include a an extraordinary museum that the Conservancy has done a lot of work on advancing that would celebrate not only the ship's history, but mid-century modern art, design, and innovation. And so that's where we are. We are encouraged. That said, of course, the global health pandemic has kicked up a lot of stiff economic headwinds that everyone is struggling to deal with. So, there are no guarantees, but we are very encouraged, and we are moving forward, and we would welcome support from anyone out there to get involved, to become members of the Conservancy, and we will, of course, are keeping everyone updated on these incredibly exciting plans.
So, Mark, speaking of eye candy, I know you're speaking to us from your office. I have not had the pleasure of dining with you, but you offered the invitation, and so I'm going to take you up it one day when we can be socially indecent. Your home is literally an example of, dare I say it, ship lover porn.
I've been told this, yes. I've been collecting for 30 years, and I've managed to get some very nice pieces, most of which will ultimately end up in our museum for the Conservancy. But my home was built in the 30s, the SS United States was the 50s, and they blend perfectly together.
So in our last few moments, Susan, tell us what you would like people to know about the United States and the legacy of your grandfather that maybe we can't read in books or find online. Some little anecdote about your personal connection to the ship and your grandfather that you think speaks to what you were talking about, it being a symbol of national pride and unity in a time when, well, we could certainly use a big dose of that.
Oh gosh, the ship, she was this country's connection to the rest of the world. So I love that about her. I mean, ocean liners in general are just so romantic as they set forth across the sea and connect this country. So she contains so many journeys and so many stories. And one of the most exciting or rewarding aspects of the Conservancy's work is the fact that we have been collecting these stories. We are soon going to release a podcast series. We're collecting, of course, film and video, and of course artifacts from the ship. And there it is. She contains the American story, as we've already expressed in different ways. And she was built to be an invincible. So my grandfather, who was quite obsessive, did not want any wood anywhere aboard the vessel because that would be a fire hazard. And so, for example, he got into a knockdown, drag-out fight with Theodore Steinway when the issue of pianos was, wanted to have Steinway pianos on the ship, and was adamantly trying to get Steinway to produce these custom aluminum pianos instead of wood. And Steinway prevailed, but thankfully to the we're so grateful to Mark for making an extremely generous donation, alongside several others. We now own, the Conservancy owns the Steinway piano that once graced the grand ballroom of the ship. And it will be a very exciting feature in our future museum. And yes, so we're encouraged. We are just, we cannot lose this incredible expression of American history, and look forward to keeping everyone posted on our progress.
Well, as someone who paid for school by playing piano at a nightclub, I'm hoping that maybe I can impose when it's there to play just one song on that Steinway. We'll see. Mark,
we're formally inviting you to do so.
Thank you. Trust me, I will. And I will play, of course, there's only one song that I would play. What would that be, Mark?
First Lady of the Sea.
Mark, I'm going to give you the closing thoughts. Talk to me about, and I already know the answer, if you could go back in time, what day would you go back to, and what would that day look like?
July 3rd, 1952, Pier 86, New York. I would be aboard the maiden voyage. The accounts that I've read, they're so exciting. I mean, I've never been on a maiden voyage. I've crossed the Atlantic a few times on ships, but I've never done a maiden voyage. And that one would have been the one to celebrate. And I would have been dancing in that conga line up to the bridge when she took the record in the wee hours of the morning. So absolutely.
Well, we look forward to having Mark and Susan, all of us, join in a conga line when the maiden voyage of the restored SS United States is in some major port city as a museum and architectural wonder. And as someone who loves history, I have for many years said that the United States does a fairly good job of preserving our architectural history, but we need to preserve our maritime history. And there is no greater symbol of that than the big U, America's flagship, the SS United States. Mark Perry, Susan Gibbs, thank you both for your efforts to keep her afloat and restore her. Ahoy.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.